And we've now drawn a line under the fiction peddled by the previous government. We've put our public finances back on a firm footing.
For our public finances and indeed for growth. We're making the decisions to get our public finances on a firm trajectory and also to boost the growth potential of our economy. Now, consultants can play an important role, but taxpayers must get value for money. So we will introduce tough new rules.
Have you ever made a promise you couldn't keep? Felt the weight of expectations crushing down on you? That's exactly where Rachel Reeves finds herself today. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. As we watch her struggle to explain her recent decisions, it's hard not to feel a mix of sympathy and frustration. After all, haven't we all faced moments where our past words come back to haunt us? Rachel Reeves' political career took a dramatic turn with a single promise: no new taxes. It was a bold claim that struck a chord with voters, but little did they know it would become the cornerstone of her downfall.
We won't borrow to fund day-to-day spending. We'll bring debt down as a share of our economy. And then only subject to that, we will invest in the things that can boost our productivity. Well, you've been running a campaign for a long time to freeze the fuel duty, and that's a cost of £3 billion, but it was the right decision.
As the new government settled in, murmurs of financial woes began to surface. Reeves dropped a bombshell, claiming she had inherited a staggering £22 billion deficit from her predecessors. But here's the kicker. Was this really a surprise to her? Critics weren't buying it. They argued that as Shadow Chancellor, Reeves should have had her finger on the pulse of the nation's finances. Her claims of shock and awe rang hollow, like a seasoned chef suddenly discovering the kitchen was out of salt. The whole scenario reeked of political convenience, and the public wasn't having it. As journalists circled like sharks, smelling blood in the water, Reeves found herself in the hot seat. Why hadn't she uncovered this fiscal black hole earlier?
Have done the responsible thing with this budget, and we've taken key decisions, made key choices. We've chosen to protect working people, and therefore
The compensation schemes that they did not fund, and their failure to assess the scale of the challenges facing our public services. But to preserve our economic stability and our financial stability, there were decisions that I had to make yesterday.
Her attempts to dodge these questions were about as graceful as a bull in a china shop, only serving to fuel the fires of skepticism. In one particularly heated exchange, Reeves' struggled to reconcile her pre-election promises with her current stance was painfully apparent. The cognitive dissonance was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Public frustration began to simmer and then boil over. Reeves found herself caught in a political no man's land, torn between party loyalty and public trust. It was a precarious position that would make even the most seasoned tightrope walker nervous, and things were only going to get more complicated. The situation reached a fever pitch when Robert Jenrick, in a scathing critique, accused Reeves of being a compulsive liar. The accusation wasn't pulled out of thin air. It stemmed from her repeated claims of inheriting an unexpected deficit. To many, this looked like nothing more than a convenient excuse for breaking campaign promises. It was the political equivalent of the dog ate my homework, and the public wasn't buying it. With her credibility hanging by a thread, Reeves faced a crucial moment in her career. Could she pull off a political Houdini act and regain the public's trust? Or would her political aspirations become yet another casualty of broken promises? The clock was ticking, and all eyes were on Rachel Reeves. Would she rise from the ashes like a phoenix, or go down in flames like so many politicians before her? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the road ahead was going to be anything but smooth.
With this, because the government had not allocated any money for it.
I know,
and
but
yesterday,
it's a good and important thing, isn't it? I think you accept that, don't you?
I do.
In
Michelle,
your manifesto.
Michelle, I do require difficult decisions, but they're ones that this government are prepared to make because we know the importance of economic and fiscal stability. I will end the tax loophole, which exempts private schools from paying VAT and business rates.
As Rachel Reeves grappled with her political predicament, the real-world consequences of her decisions rippled far beyond Westminster. The impact hit hardest where it hurt most, in the homes of pensioners and on the fields of farmers. Pensioners, already struggling to keep their homes warm amidst skyrocketing energy costs, found themselves facing a bitter winter, both literally and figuratively. The loss of vital winter fuel payments left many feeling abandoned and betrayed. How could Reeves, who had promised to protect the vulnerable, leave them out in the cold? The contrast between her lofty promises and the harsh reality was as stark as a frosty morning. Meanwhile, in the countryside, farmers braced themselves for a storm of a different kind. Potential tax changes loomed on the horizon, threatening to upend their already precarious livelihoods. The agricultural sector, no stranger to challenges, now faced a future as uncertain as an English summer. Would these changes be the final straw for many family farms? Public sentiment shifted like a weather vane in a gale. Those who once saw Reeves as a champion of the working class now questioned her priorities.
You're seeing it around the world. It is unlocking investment around the world. I want those jobs. I want that investment in Britain. And with Labour, we will. That this new Labour government would like to do. But unless you can say where the money is going to come from, you can't do them. We've inherited a situation that I never imagined I would. Through tax receipts. And we can only in the future borrow to invest in our economy. And we've got to bring in private sector investment alongside any investment.
The disconnect between her words and actions became impossible to ignore, like an elephant in a china shop. Advocacy groups for pensioners and farmers didn't mince words, accusing Reeves of failing to prioritize the needs of everyday citizens. They painted a grim picture of millions left in limbo, forced to dip into life savings or sell homes to afford care for loved ones. In media appearances, Reeves attempted to defend her position, but her explanations often circled back to blaming previous administrations or citing economic challenges. It was like watching a broken record skip, and the public's patience wore thin. Critics noted a pattern of evasive responses, deflecting blame instead of addressing immediate concerns. This dance around the issues only served to erode trust further. As criticism mounted, Reeves found herself increasingly isolated. Even within her own party, whispers of discontent began to surface.
We have called in planning decisions around onshore wind, housing and data centres to unlock the private investment that wants to come to Britain. To be open and be transparent about the decisions that I needed to make. I'm not going to be coming back with a budget like this in the future. Of having in-year gap of £22 billion. The reserve set aside for emergencies was spent 3 times over.
The once rising star now seemed to be falling fast, leaving a trail of broken promises in her wake. The evidence of Reeves avoiding transparency in her policies piled up like unpaid bills. Her refusal to appear on certain media platforms, her evasive answers during interviews, and her tendency to deflect blame all pointed to a lack of openness. It was as if she was trying to navigate a minefield blindfolded, hoping to stumble through unscathed. With each passing day, the gap between Reeves's promises and her actions widened. The question on everyone's mind was clear. How long could she maintain this precarious balancing act before something had to give? As families questioned not just the decisions made, but also the excuses provided, the clock ticked ominously for Rachel Reeves's political future. Rachel Reeves' political saga serves as a cautionary tale, echoing the downfalls of past leaders like Tony Blair and David Cameron.
But coupled with reform, I know we can bring that investment back to Britain to grow our economy.
For working people, no increase in their income tax, in their national insurance, their VAT. That's what we promised before the election.
And that is why, at this budget, we did wipe the slate clean to put public finances and public services on a firm footing.
Her struggle to balance campaign promises with fiscal realities has exposed the messy underbelly of British politics. As pensioners shiver through winter without fuel payments and farmers nervously eye potential tax hikes, Reeves finds herself in a precarious position. The upcoming budget announcement on October 30th, 2024, looms large on the horizon. It's a make-or-break moment for Reeves, with the public watching closely to see how she'll address the economic challenges she once promised to solve. Will she emerge as a leader who made tough but necessary choices, or join the ranks of politicians who failed to deliver? Reeves's journey offers a stark reminder of the importance of transparency and accountability in public office. As her political future hangs in the balance, one thing is clear: the repercussions of her decisions will shape British politics for years to come. The question remains, can Reeves regain the public's trust, or will her political career become another casualty of broken promises?